Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Today I'm putting together just a sweet little spring bouquet. I have some soft pastel purple, cream colored tulips, green roses, and kind of a brighter fuchsia toned mums there and daisies, and a lot of mixtures of greenery. So I have some seeded eucalyptus, some spiral eucalyptus. And a little bit, I think there's a different shade of seeded eucalyptus in there too. But I'm just making a little roundy moundy bouquet. I think it's perfect for spring. I love these soft pastel colors. Instead of going with a softer pink, I decided to go with this kind of little, almost like mauve fuchsia color. I don't even know what I would call it. But I love how it variegates into the light pink there. And it really blends in nicely with the lavenders too, and could almost be considered a cool color palette or a colder color palette, just because even though it has that kind of pink in there, it leans itself a little bit more towards the blue side of a pink or purple or lavender, if that makes sense at all. And then I also have these wonderful little poofs of pink feathery strings, I guess. I got it at Hobby Lobby. It actually came on a larger stem, and I just clipped off the little floofies off of there so that I could use them individually into bouquets. I am tying this off as I go along. Tulips have a round stem to them that tend to spin. So just to keep it from spinning around in my hand, I'm using some wax floral tape. And I will just kind of loosely tie it off to try to help alleviate the arthritis in my hand. No, I'm just kidding. Just to help keep it from spinning and having to squeeze so tight on the bouquet. One thing that I don't really talk about is kind of the depth of the flowers. Those roses have a nice round shape, and then the mums sit a little bit flatter. So while I'd like to keep the mums kind of on an even playing field as the roses, they tend to sit back a little bit more, which is fine. I think you only kind of run into trouble when you have more of a brighter color that'd be like kind of a focal color, in which case you're going to want to make sure that it's pushed up above any other receding flowers, or at least on the same playing field. Or plain, not playing field, on the same level as the other flowers. But it is a bit harder to design when you have rounder flowers versus one that sits more flat. I do like the idea of keeping the greenery and the tulips out a little bit further so they have a little bit of that spring in their step. It is a spring bouquet, and all puns intended. I love how it has that movement, that bounce to it as you walk down the aisle with it. And I use the remaining little floofies and some more seeded eucalyptus around the base of the bouquet to hide my mechanics. Always very important to hide your secrets within the bouquet so that nobody knows. And I'm going to go ahead and do a ribbon treatment on the handle. So I measure 2 hands down, and that's a good size for the handle, unless you got giant man-sized hands, in which case you might want to go 1.5. But typically about 2 hands down would keep it from turning into like a scepter-style bouquet where you have to carry it off to the side. And it also keeps it from being too small of a handle to even hang on to. Kind of makes a nice balanced weight also as you're carrying it, so it's not tipping forward, and it's not something that you have to hold off to the side. So once I have everything clipped off, I'm going to use my wax floral tape, and I'm going to wrap all the way to the bottom so that I hold my stems nice and tight together. I did tie it off with a wire. I like using chenille stems, otherwise known as pipe cleaners. However, I am out, so I got to reorder some more. But I just went ahead and I used, I think it was a really thin, like a 29 gauge wire that I doubled up, and I pulled it nice and tight so that my stems stay in place and where they need to be. As I was putting the wax floral tape down, ran into a bump on the handle, and I like having a nice smooth handle. If you don't address those things right away, you'll wrap up the handle with ribbon, and you'll still see that bump, and it almost stands out even more once you wrap it with the ribbon. So I usually say about 3.5 lengths of ribbon down for the ribbon if you wanted to cut it ahead before you wrap it on the handle. You can leave it on the the spool as you go along, just to make sure that you don't waste any ribbon. But I went ahead and cut it. And then I'm going to trim up a corsage pin, because that's going to be my anchor to hold it into place. Not a big fan of hot glue. Truth be told, a little scared of my glue gun because it's super, super hot. But you can see the glue through the ribbon if you use it. So I go down the length of the handle, and it really is just a bunch of maneuvering to get that ribbon down, under, and back up. So I typically go down the length of the handle, and then I bend the tail into like an L, and then just tucking and pulling as I go. You want to pull it nice and tight. This is a satin ribbon with a wire on it, which does kind of help keep its shape. I prefer a double-faced satin ribbon though. I feel like it lays a little bit neater. But if it's tough for you to do a ribbon wrap on the handle, go for the wired one, because it makes it a lot easier. I did have to back it up a little bit because it was coming a little loose as I got to the top. So I had to make some adjustments. I wanted to go around one more time on the handle, but I couldn't quite do it without buckling my ribbon on the handle itself. So once I get to the top, I just give that extra tail a twist, and I tuck in some corsage pins. I like trimming them down just to make sure that the pins don't poke all the way through the other side of the bouquet. Very important to keep whoever's carrying it safe from being poked with wires. And so I put those pins in, hold it nice and secure, and then I'll trim off any of the tails there. To do the ribbon wrap on the handle, you don't have to go down and then back up. It's not a requirement. I like doing it because, again, it hides the mechanics, so nobody realizes what's in the stem there. It also will soften any wires that might be a little bit more pokey down below, but not necessary. If you're doing a fresh hand-tie bouquet, you can leave about half an inch of exposure on the stems down below, and then that way you can keep your bouquet in water. Just a little bit of water at the base if you wanted to. And I wanted to give a little bit of a special treatment on the handle. I just, again, love these pastel colors. So I have a number 3 ribbon that I'm going to wrap around the top. I just kind of double it around the back and then into the front again. And I do have to say I have a pocket guide out. It's available on Amazon in digital form or in paperback. I'll put a link in the descriptions to it. I do have it in my shop, but just between you and me, it's a little cheaper on Amazon. And it explains different sizes of ribbons. It has a bunch of colored bouquets in there to look at and just kind of be inspired by. There'll be a little view of it at the end of this video. I just kind of did a little clip so you can see. It's not a very thick book, but it does have over 70 bouquet ideas in there. So just something fun to look at if you're getting ready to make your own bouquet or planning for a special event. So for this special little ribbon treatment, I just did a shoelace bow at the top. Thought very simple, very fresh, with some long tails that will also have a little quote-unquote spring in its step. And then, oh boy, my dog's going off. But I'm going to take the tails of the ribbon, and I'm just giving them a special cut at the end, and that will put a V into the ribbon itself, make it look nice and finished. And then there you go. We made it all the way to the end. And this was just a sweet little spring bouquet in pastel colors with a ribbon treatment on the handle. Thank you so much for watching. Hey everyone, I've self-published a book called Okay Bouquet, and it's available on Amazon. Okay Bouquet is a pocket guide for those planning and creating wedding bouquets. There's over 70 bouquets to look at and be inspired by, plus some tips and tricks along the way. And in the back is a personalized guide for planning out flowers for a wedding or special occasion. Check it out on Amazon today.